dreaded penalty charge notice, or PCN. For London drivers, they're one big headache. But for the people dishing them out, they're also a big money spinner. Tonight, Inside Out meets the traffic wardens, civil enforcement officers as they're known, who spill the beans on the murky world of ticketing.
If the company forecasts something and it's not gonna get that figure, then they ramp the pressure up on us to go and get those tickets.
And they reveal some of the dirty tricks they say they're forced to play just to catch motorists out.
There's ways that people can constructively create PCNs. Many people manipulate pocketbooks. Discussions that never happen suddenly materialise, and because the pocketbook is our witness, tendency is it's taken on board as evidence.
When it comes to parking revenue, Camden is one of the highest earners. Last year, £40,000 in fines were handed out every day, and overall, parking made the council a cool £25 million profit. Local builder Richard Chormerton says he's been plagued by traffic wardens and unfair fines.
How many tickets?
There's probably as many as 800. 95% of these tickets, they shouldn't even be issued. I mean, the CEOs are giving out tickets, and I say that they're giving them out knowingly that they shouldn't.
One former civil enforcement officer worked in Camden for years. He does not want to be identified. He says he was under constant pressure from his bosses to issue tickets.
What would they say to you?
They would sit you down and say you've not been meeting your targets. Then they would bring out a review and then have a discussion planner with you. They would follow you and observe you in the field.
But the reason behind all this process?
It's the pressure from management for more PCNs.
More tickets?
Yes.
I want money. That's what I want.
Tim isn't the only Camden civil enforcement officer that we spoke to. Here's what some others told us. One said supervisors have a definite expectation of the numbers required. The pressure to issue tickets makes the job demoralizing and depressing. Another said 9 tickets a day was the minimum, but to qualify for overtime, you need to get double numbers. And another described the intimidation that they felt. If they don't get what they want, management get very agitated, he said.
Those managers work for Britain's biggest parking enforcement company, NSL. They run on-street parking in 14 London boroughs. I've come to one of them, Ealing, to meet another civil enforcement officer who wants to tell me what's going on here. He also doesn't want to be identified.
The pressure on us, the CEOs, is coming from our managers. Internally, their managers are pressurizing them to put the pressure on us, and the council is putting pressure on the company to perform, to make their target.
What things do the managers say to you?
Sometimes they will not approve your holiday, they not give you overtime, they will change your rest days, they will make your life living hell.
His story is strikingly similar to the civil enforcement officers I met in Camden. After speaking to him for over an hour, he makes an amazing confession.
Day to day, less and less people are parking illegally because they are learning from their mistakes. So sometimes you have to go out and issue a dodgy ticket. They will leave blank pages in their pocketbook. They will issue before full observation time on a certain offences. Like commercial vehicles in the loading bays should get 20 minutes. They will issue after 5 or 6 minutes.
And according to our parking insiders, issuing dodgy tickets to meet targets isn't unusual.
A vehicle is parked in a certain area where there's no time plate, but they will issue the PCN anyway and take a picture of another time plate to cover up for it. They use every trick in the book. They have learned different tricks from different boroughs.
NSL staff here in Ealing have told us that pressure to meet ticket targets has been an issue since the company took over the contract 3 years ago, so much so that they wrote to the leader of Ealing Council to complain. This is the letter, and in it they claim they're being bullied to meet a target of 126,000 PCNs because that was the number the council forecast in its budget. They warn,
we cannot punish Ealing residents and its visitors because we want to achieve NSL's PCN target.
But in this response, signed by Ealing's then Assistant Director of Parking, the council seems to justify that figure. The council used that figure as part of its budget-setting process, which is entirely consistent with the Traffic Management Act. We asked parking expert Barry Siegel, is this legal? Can a council forecast how many tickets should be given out?
Well, they may be able to forecast, but what they can't do is actually go out and raise that number of parking tickets to achieve that target.
And 3 years on, the Ealing wardens say they're feeling the heat more than ever. We've obtained emails sent by one NSL manager telling supervisors how to discipline officers for not issuing enough tickets. In one, he writes,
"Outline if performance improves, no further action will be taken. If performance drops, further action could be taken against them. Really push them on the street. Never write PCN issue rate on a discussion planner. When writing, refer to it as performance instead."
Staff secretly recorded the same manager a few weeks later as he piled on the pressure.
It seems to be that the performance has gone down quite remarkably in the last sort of 2 months. Okay. As a result of that, the client is on our back all over me, like about the measles at the moment. Okay.
The client referred to is Ealing Council, and the manager even implies their jobs could be at risk.
First thing will happen is they'll rein the overtime in. Okay. And then what will happen is they'll say, "Wait a minute, we've got maybe 180 PCNs being issued a day, whereas, just so you know guys, 2 months ago we were issuing 280, we're now issuing 180. What they'll say is, "Oh, we're issuing 180 PCNs now, why do we need so many CEOs?" And then I don't need to tell you what happens after that.
The guidelines which councils must adhere to are very clear. There can be no ticket targets. After months of investigation, we've got hold of Camden and Ealing's parking contracts with NSL. Under the heading of Year 1 target, the Camden contract sets out a PCN issue rate of 1.3 tickets an hour. The Ealing contract says the council expects 110,000 tickets to be given out a year.
Hello, thank you very much for the pleasure.
I showed these documents to a top litigation lawyer.
It's a clever exercise in legal semantics, and it's unlikely to pass the smell test before a court properly directed. Instinctively, I would like to think that a court properly advised, looking at all of the case law surrounding this area, may well conclude that the contracts are at least arguably unlawful. If the contract contains the word target in all but name, if a court concludes, as a consequence of that the contract is unlawful, it has to be arguable that every ticket that has been issued pursuant to the placing of that contract and its implementation was itself unlawful.
We received these statements from Camden and Ealing councils.
Camden Council does not set targets for the number of penalty charge notices that are required to be issued. Camden also does not financially reward either our contractor NSL or civil enforcement officers for the number of penalty charge notices issued. To suggest otherwise is factually incorrect.
Our parking contract and practices are entirely lawful. We have never asked NSL to meet ticket quotas, nor do we pay incentives or impose penalties for the number of tickets issued. The Department of Transport says it is good practice for councils to set revenue forecasts in advance, but our parking contract has no conditions or performance measures around the number of PCNs issued.
Both councils point out that they use the numbers in the contracts to calculate staffing levels. And the company they both employ, NSL, said in a statement,
NSL is not contracted by any local authority to meet targets for PCNs issued. A ticket cannot be issued unless a contraventions occurred. If evidence is provided that suggests our employees have not complied with our policies and procedures, we will investigate and take the appropriate action.
Ealing and Camden say that overall numbers of tickets being issued is coming down. Meanwhile, officers on the ground say meeting their targets is getting ever harder.
I would consider myself as an honest person who does the right thing. But because the pressure that we are under, it makes you think different.
We were not really helping people. We were mercilessly persecuting them by issuing PCNs to as many drivers as we could.